Happy afternoon, students. Welcome back to RGR Academy. So, this is a biology session. Today, we'll start with a new chapter under human physiology, that is excretory system, that is like excretory products and the elimination of the waste that we're going to discuss in this particular chapter. This is a paper discussion. I hope you received the test papers. So, we'll discuss the correct answers for all the questions for this particular chapter. We'll start with the chapter now, that is excretory products and their elimination. Okay, let us begin. The first question, the 91 question. Formation of urea takes place in they're given the four options. So usually you take the formation of urea. So where the formation of urea, the urea synthesis takes place. The urea synthesis takes place in the liver by means of ornithine cycle. So you know the cycle, the citrulline, the compounds which forms, where what happens, like, you know, because we human beings are ureotelic in organisms, where what happens, like the ammonia, like which combines with the carbon dioxide, this you would have studied in the uric acid cycle, where the citrulline, this compound, gets formed. So this occurs by means of the ornithine cycle, that we call it as urea cycle. So this takes place in the liver, in the hepatocytes. So the correct options for this question, the formation of urea takes place in the liver. Liver is the correct answer. Option 3 is the correct answer. So next question, 92. Freshwater bony fishes maintain water balance by. So as far as like the bony fishes are concerned, how the bony fishes which maintain the water balance, you know pretty well. As far as the fishes are concerned, they seems to be aquatic in nature. This takes an oxygen, not like we people, like, you know, as far as aquatic organisms, it takes oxygen in the form of dissolved oxygen, the dissolved oxygen. So what happens in this case, and mostly like this bony fishes, aquatic organisms are aminotelic, where, like, you know, it excretes ammonia, and the reason is because the ammonia is highly soluble in water when compared to urea and uric acid, and also ammonia is comparatively more toxic than the other two nitrogenous waste, that is urea and uric acid. So this question, the freshwater bony fishes maintain water balance by means of, because excreting a hypotonic urine. Why it is excreting hypotonic urine? This is because it's present in the water body itself, where it's excreting ammonia, and ammonia is highly soluble in water. Compared to the solubility is concerned, like ammonia is, like, you know, it requires more amount of water for its solubility when compared to the urea and uric acid, and ammonia is more toxic than the urea and uric acid. So this aquatic organisms like bony fishes which produces or excretes the hypotonic urine. So option 1 is the correct answer. Coming to the next question, 93. Which of the following amino acids play an important role in a ornithine cycle? So the urea cycle we discussed already. So when coming to the urea cycle, the question number 93, we're talking about the 93. So we're talking about the urea cycle. This urea cycle, which we also called it as ornithine cycle. So this is also called as ornithine cycle. So when you look at into the cycle, the urea cycle, you could see the components where ornithine and citrulline. So as the main products are like ornithine that you could see, and the citrulline. Citrulline is the main compound that you could see in this case, where other options where you could see the amino acids are like glycine, methionine, arginine, these and all will not be the products of the urea cycle. So question number 93, option 3 is the correct cycle, because the ornithine cycle, because why we call it as an ornithine cycle, because ornithine is getting produced one, and along with the citrulline. So citrulline is the main derivative that you could see in this particular cycle. Fine. So coming to the next question, 94. Loop of Henle is found in, is a very simple question, because nephron is the structural and functional unit of a kidney that we know already. Loop of Henle, because loop of Henle is a part of a nephron, the loop of Henle that you study like an ascending loop and descending loop that you would have studied. The question number 94, you take the loop of Henle. So when you talk about the nephron structure, you could see the Bowman's cap, the Malpighian, and the glomerulus that you could see inside, and this is a proximal convoluted tubule, and followed by this you could see the loop of Henle, that you could see, and then comes the distal convoluted tubule, and then it forms the collecting duct. This is the collecting duct. So this is the collecting duct that you could see at last. So this is the part that we talking about, the loop of Henle. This is called as loop of Henle. So Loop of Henle, this is the ascending, this is the descending loop, and this is the main loop, and this one is the ascending loop. So this structure we call it as a loop of Henle, and this loop of Henle which present in the structure called nephron. So nephron is the structural and the functional unit of a kidney. So correct option is 4 for question 94. Next question 95. The Bowman's capsule is found in. It's again, when you look at the structure, the cross section of the kidney, if you would have studied like it consists of the outermost part, the cortex, the inner part is called as medulla. Based on the presence of the nephrons are present, we classify the next nephrons into juxtamedullary nephrons and cortical nephrons. These two, because majority of the parts, if you could see the nephrons in the cortical region, then it is called as cortical nephron. If the main part, majority of the part, if you could see in the medullary part, we call it as a juxtamedullary nephrons. Based on the position, how like loop of Henle, the size of the loop of Henle, how it is get penetrating inside the medulla, this classification is made especially with the nephrons, that is juxtamedullary nephrons and the cortical nephrons. But this question, the Bowman's capsule is found in, as far as you look at the structure of the kidney, if you look at the structure of the kidney, so if you see the structure, there is a renal pelvis that you could see, right? This outermost part is this, what actually we call it as a cortex region. This is the cortex part, and the inner part we call it as a medulla. But both the type of nephrons, juxtamedullary nephrons and the cortical nephrons, in both the cases, if you see, you could see the Bowman's capsule which present outside, and then only we have the difference like proximal convolutule and sometimes loop of Henle which will be grooved deeply inside, and sometimes loop of Henle which may not be deeply seated inside the medullary region. This part is the medullary part of the kidney. So usually what happens, like the Bowman's capsule which present in both the type of nephrons, you take even juxtaglomerular nephrons or you take cortical nephrons, in both the cases you could see the Malpighian part that you could see, right? The Bowman's capsule, this Bowman's capsule which present in the cortex region. So the correct answer for this particular question for 95 is cortex, that is option 2. Coming to the next question, 96. Which one of the following components of urine in a healthy human does not differ much in the concentration from the blood plasma? For this question, they given ammonium ions the sulfur ions like potassium ions, and these ions all these they given, but the correct answer is sodium. Because when you talk about the sodium based on the sodium is the main electrolyte. Based on this only we differentiate, like the loop of Henle we talk as counter current mechanism, we will study the vasa recta and the descending and the ascending loop. Based on the permeability and the impermeability of the water and the sodium only, this makes the difference, and this plays a very important role in maintaining the osmolarity, right? Having this is a context like for this particular question, the sodium ions are the correct answer. So option 3 is the correct answer. So question number 96. So the following components of urine in a healthy human does not differ much in the concentration from the blood plasma, because sodium remains same, which won't be having much of difference between the normal, the blood and the plasma. Fine. And also the sodium which plays a very important role in the osmoregulations and also the pH, that's which this sodium is playing a very important role. Next question number 97. Juxtaglomerular apparatus is made up of, you would have studied, we call it as a juxtaglomerular apparatus. So this question number 96, coming to the question number 96, we call it as juxtaglomerular apparatus. So in this juxtaglomerular apparatus, you would have studied the 3 important components that you would have studied, the juxtaglomerular apparatus, because this is an association. What are the things that you could see in this case? The juxtaglomerular cells that you could see, and second thing is the macula densa and the lacus cell. So lacus cells that you could see. So option 1 is the correct answer. So juxtaglomerular. So how you could see in this case, for example, this is actually the glomerular part, okay, the glomerular part, and this is the afferent arterioles that you could see. In this area, you could see the juxtaglomerular, JGC, juxtaglomerular cell. And then comes, you have the distal convoluted tubule. You have the distal convoluted, we call it as DCT, distal convoluted tubule. In the distal convoluted tubule, you could see the macula densa. In this part, you could see the macula densa you could see. In between the juxtaglomerular cells and the distal convoluted tubule, you have the mesangial cells. This we call it as a mesangial cell, or this is also called as Laches cells. This is also called as Laches. So mesangial cell can be also called as Laches cell. So this together we call it a juxtaglomerular cells, the distal convoluted tubule, and in between we have the mesangial cell or the Laches cell. Together we call it as juxtaglomerular apparatus. Sometimes if the Laches is not there, instead they are given mesangial cells, even you go with that option, mesangial cells can be also called as Laches cell. So this is the combined effort that you could see in case of this apparatus is called as juxtaglomerular apparatus. This is the part where you study something called as renin, that RAS, all the concept which comes, right, for understanding the RAS, right, the renin angiotensinogen that you would have studied, right, that particular area if you study, even for that you need to understand this apparatus, that is juxtaglomerular apparatus, because these cells, the juxtaglomerular cells, which plays a very important role in the production of renin, right. So for that you need to understand this JGC. So JGC is made up of, that is your juxtaglomerular cells, your macula densa, and your mesangial cell. So we move to the next question, that is 90. This is the 97 question. So this we done with the 97. This is the 97 question. Okay. Next we move to 98 question. What is removed from the filtrate at the loop of Henle? The loop of Henle, what is actually is getting like, you know, removed, because amino acids, hormones, glucose, these are all the things which usually is getting like absorbed in the ultrafiltration glucose parts mainly, and when it comes to the proximal convoluted tubule itself, majority of the absorption is going to take place in that region itself, and remaining part, like what is coming in the loop of Henle, is majority of the water. So what's going to get absorbed here in the loop of Henle, where you could see the water molecules? The reason is all other compounds like amino acids, hormones, glucose are already been absorbed, already got absorbed in the proximal convoluted tubule. So the correct option for this 98 question is 3. We move to the next question, 99. During tubular reabsorption, high concentration of sodium chloride in interstitial fluid around Henle's loop facilitates the absorption of or facilitate the absorption of the water only, because it's not the glucose. Again the same logic, because again the proximal convoluted tubule itself, the majority of all the components going to get absorbed. So in the loop of Henle, where you could see where the reabsorption takes place, where you could see the facilitates loop of Henle, because you could see the descending and the ascending loop. One side it is impermeable to water, the ascending the other part is the permeable to water. One side is impermeable to sodium chloride, other side is permeable to sodium chloride. This you would have studied. So because water is getting reabsorbed in the descending limb of the loop of Henle, due to which what happens, like this increases osmolarity. Due to this, which increases osmolarity, the concept is very simple. Whereas one part you could see, like, you know, the descending and ascending loop of Henle. This is the descending and ascending loop of Henle. Here this is the descending part, this is the ascending part. Coming to this part, like in this part is like impermeable to water, and this is permeable to sodium chloride. And this side you come to, like, you know, this is permeable to sodium chloride, and it is impermeable to water. So this makes actually which confirms the osmolarity between the descending and the ascending loop of Henle. So along with this, you will be studying one more thing called as like vasa recta. Vasa recta is also like which coiled around the loop of Henle. This like vasa recta also which comes here. This is a vasa recta, and this performs a function, the reaction called as vasa recta, and this is a loop of Henle. Together it performs counter current mechanism, both which will be the filtrate which will be moving in an opposite direction. The main function is what? To just maintain the osmolarity. Okay, so this is how which osmolarity is maintained, and the interstitial fluid is actually caused by the presence of the sodium chloride. So having this as the content in your mind, so the option that you can select for this particular question is option 3 is the correct answer. So water. Coming to next question, 100. Concentration of the urine is controlled by either it is hypotonic or hypertonic. So you would have noticed, like summer season and winter season, the volume of urine, the output which comes by means of micturition, which keeps varying. This is because of the hormone which is called as What is that actually called as? We have options like 4 options are given, out of which you take ADH. The ADH, that is like adenodiuretic hormone, right? And diuretic hormone, and this is otherwise called as vasopressin, or this is also called as pityrisin. So there are 3 names that we give, which this hormone ADH or vasopressin, which directly under the control of the hypothalamus. There are 2 hormones, one is like vasopressin, other one is the oxytocin. These 2 hormones are directly under the control of hypothalamus, which controls the pituitary gland itself. For this question, concentration of the urine. So how it's getting concentrated? This because when the CDH started producing, then what happened? Like the distal convoluted started reabsorbing the water molecule. Then it started reabsorbing the water molecules. Again, what will happen? The urine will become, again what will happen? Hypertonic, because it's absorbing the water again. Then filtrate is again getting concentrated. Then what will happen? The urine will become a concentrated. It's vice versa condition. You will notice like the antidiuretic hormone or the vasopressin with the other hormone also that which produced by the heart, right? So these 2 hormones which acts like a antagonistic in nature. Antidiuretic hormone we call it as, right? Antidiuretic hormone, and we have the atrial natriuretic factor. So these 2 actually hormones which are antagonistic, one will increase and other one will the decrease. One will absorb the water, other will be reabsorption of the water. As far as the concentration of the urine is controlled, who is controlling here? Either like it's which is converting, it's like hypertonic. This is because of the antidiuretic hormone. How? By reabsorption of the water by the distal convoluted tubule. If the ADH is not there, then what will happen? The distal convoluted tubule of the nephron, which will not absorb the water, then definitely what will happen? The urine will become hypotonic. This is what you would have noticed in the summer season and the winter season. This is the basic, the principle behind the action of antidiuretic hormone or vasopressin. Next question, question number 101. The yellow color of the normal urine. So urine actually doesn't have the color, but basically we call it as a pale yellow color that we give. So this is because of the pigment, we call it as a urochrome pigment. It's a very basic question, but where we cannot go for other thing, because bilirubin, biliverdin is actually which forms because of the cleavage of the RBCs, whereas uric acid is a nitrogenous waste indeed. So the correct option which gives the color, the pale yellow color for the urine is because of urochrome. So option 3 is the correct answer. 102. Next question. ADH deficiency shows the following. If the person seems to be like deficient in this particular hormone, this hormone is not properly regulated or is not properly produced in the person, then what will be the symptom? They are given all the 4 options here, but you could see like polydipsia and the polyuria. So polydipsia and polyuria, this condition we call it as a diabetes insipidus. It's not diabetes mellitus. One thing you should understand, glycosuria is a condition. This is because of diabetes mellitus. This is because of the deficiency of the insulin. This is a hormone related thing that you will study, the pancreas. That is because of diabetes mellitus, where the expulsion of glucose that you could see in the urine. This condition is called as glycosuria. But when you talk about ADH deficiency, if the ADH is not properly produced, then it leads to a condition called a diabetes insipidus. So question number 102, diabetes insipidus. Diabetes insipidus is a condition where there is a deficiency of antidiuretic hormone. If this antidiuretic hormone seems to be deficient, then what happens, like the water is not getting reabsorbed by the distal convoluted tubule, then the urine will become again like an hypotonic. The periodically what will happen, substantially the person which expels urine often, since the dehydration is occurring like most of the time, then the person which will be having like thirst all the time, like feel of like urge to drink the water repeatedly. So this condition is called as polydipsia. Polydipsia is like frequently the person drinks the water, right? Feel of thirst. This is called as polydipsia. Polyuria is frequently passing of the urine. So both the conditions, these are the symptoms for this diabetes insipidus. How this occurs? This occurs by means of the reduction of antidiuretic hormone. Okay. This why? Because no reabsorption of this water is happening in distal convoluted tubule, so automatically the urine will become hypotonic and more of water which will be coming out. If more of water comes out to the body, dehydration takes place. If more of dehydration takes place, the person urged to drink water repeatedly. So the symptom polydipsia and polyuria for the question 102. Next question 103. Uricotelium is found in, the nitrogenous phase, like aminotelic, ureotelic, uricotelic. These 3 types are based on like an ammonia. We have urea and uric acid. Coming to the uricotelic is found in Birds, reptiles and insects. Usually the birds, reptiles, we are actually ureotelic. We human beings are ureotelic. Uricotelic means expulsion of uric acid. Where you could see this type of excretion, you could see in case of birds, reptiles and insects. Usually you could see. That's the reason when, like, you know, the urine or something, the excretes which that we could have a chance of get touch with this, like, you know, then we'll be having the ulcerations of this because of the acid, the uric acid which present in the particular organisms like birds, reptiles and the insects, where what happens, like, you know, the ammonia is getting converted to urea in the liver. This again which happens by means of the cycle. What is the name of the cycle? Yes, Ornithine cycle. Fine. So option 2 is the correct answer. Question number 104. Choose the wrong statement. Out of the 4 statements that you would have seen, it seems to be like option 2 is correct, option 3 is correct and option 4 is also correct. But first option that you could see, ureotelic organisms, ammonia is not the product of metabolism. In case of ureotelic, what happens, like ammonia is getting converted to urea. So the first option is the wrong answer. Why? Because it's happening in the liver, where the ammonia is, of course, the metabolism takes place, where by means of ornithine cycle it's getting converted to urea. So the first option, you can freeze that to be the incorrect answer. Next question number 105. Uric acid is the chief nitrogenous component of the excretory products of. Uric acid, again we already discussed, like mostly in the case of reptiles, that insects and birds, where you could see here out of these 4 options, like man, definitely it's not like uric acid. Frog, why the frog is not? Because frog is amphibian, it can live both in land as well as in water. It acts like an aminotelic and also it will be acting like a ureotelic, both terrestrial and aquatic. So we are excluding frog also. Then earthworm also will not comes under this option, and the correct option is cockroach. Option 2, cockroach, because cockroach is uricotelic. Usually the land reptiles, you know, crustaceans, insects which will fall under this category. So question number 106. The excretory material of marine bony fish, this is the second time we are getting the same question. The bony fishes excretory material that you could see is the urea. The excretory material is the urea. Where you could see the ammonia. The ammonia is, again, you just go back to the ornithine cycle. We first discussed in the very beginning, it's the ornithine cycle. What's happening in the urea, the ornithine cycle? Ornithine and citrulline is getting formed. Having this in our mind, the ammonia is getting converted to urea, and this going to come to the blood, and this will be getting filtered, and this uricotelic organisms which seems to be less toxic. If you have these 3 like ammonia, urea and uric acid, always keep this in your mind, which is highly toxic. The first toxicity is for ammonia, then comes, like, you know, your urea, then uric acid. Solubility is concerned, like it will be going in the reverse, where the ammonia requires like more amount of water. That is the reason, like, you know, we cannot afford that much of water, because we are, like, you know, living in land. Whereas like aquatic organisms, it can excrete ammonia because it's already living in water. So the ammonia can be easily dissolved in a water. This is not quite possible with the organisms which lives in a land. Okay. So question number 106 we have done. 107. The part of a nephron which opens into the collecting duct. Which is a part of the nephron which collects, as already drew the diagram, you know, this is actually the Malpighian, the Bowman's capsule. This is a proximal, this part is proximal convoluted tubule. This is a loop of Henle. This is distal convoluted tubule, and this one is the collecting duct. So what comes before the collecting duct? It's a distal convoluted tubule. So you can take this as a correct option, the distal convoluted tubule. It's a very logic and very simple question. So if you know the diagram very clearly, you can answer this type of question. So option 1 is the correct answer. Question 108. The part of a nephron involved in the acting absorption of sodium. I told you majority of the absorption after the ultrafiltration. Ultrafiltration which takes place in the Bowman's capsule. After the ultrafiltration which takes place, effective absorption of sodium which takes place in the proximal convoluted tubule, PCT, where majority of the absorption takes place, and then which comes to the water, I mean the loop of Henle, the water is getting absorbed. So after the ultrafiltration in this, like Malpighian, the Bowman's capsule, after this majority of that is ultrafiltration, but absorption is concerned, majority of the absorption is taking place only in the proximal convoluted tubule. So the correct option for 108 is option 2, because here you could see in this case the proximal convoluted tubule, both active and the passive absorption, both the type of absorption takes place, and this indeed produce 65% of the glomerular filtrate. This issue, sometimes they have to ask the question, what is the percentage of the glomerular filtrate which is getting produced by the proximal convoluted tubule? The proximal convoluted tubule itself which produces 65% of glomerular filtrate. Okay, so having this in your mind, so you go with the option 2, where not only like you take the sodium, you take glucose, amino acids, vitamins, like majority of all the the compounds which will be greatly absorbed in the proximal convoluted tubule. Okay, and also one thing like here from this is the place where you could see the peritubular capillaries. The peritubular capillaries that we also called as the vasa recta. This vasa recta is actually getting coiling onto this, and definitely what will happen, the counter current mechanism, it started enhancing when this goes to the loop of Henle. This is for your information. Next question 109. PCT, proximal convoluted tubule of nephron, is responsible for, which is responsible for what? That just now we discussed. This is a repetition of the same type of question, but they twisted the question. Again, it's a selective reabsorption. That is like 65% of the glomerular filtrate is going to get produced, going to happen in the proximal convoluted tubule. So having this in your mind, if you see the other options, you can go with the third option, that is selective reabsorption of glucose, amino acids, so sodium chloride. This is going to happen in the proximal convoluted tubule. Why? The reason is because in this proximal convoluted tubule, what is the main type of cell that you could see? You could see brush bordered cells or the microvilli. Question number 109. Why PCT? If you ask for the PCT, of course, it's having like more of absorption. What's the principle behind more of like absorption of the sodium, like glucose and everything is taking place? This consists of special type of cells, the brush border cells, we call it as a microvilli. Okay, and also it's having more number of mitochondria. This also contain more number of mitochondria. But in case of like Bowman's capsule, you could see podocytes. The podocytes, you could see slit kind of thing along with the capillaries. This performs ultrafiltration. But come to the proximal convoluted tubule, we have the microvilli and there are more number of mitochondria. This enhances the reabsorption of all these components. So you can take the option 3 for this question. Question 110, glucose and amino acids are reabsorbed. Where the glucose, repeat the same logic question, it's a proximal tubule. The proximal tubule, it's because of what? Permeable to the water. Okay, and it excretes around what? 25 to 30 gram of urea per day. Sometimes they'll ask per day how much of like urea is getting excreted, 25 to 30 gram of urea. Okay, so option 1 is the correct answer for question number 1. It's all like same type of question, slight manipulation they've done, like the slight twist they made, they're asking this type of question. But have this in mind, proximal convoluted tubule and what are the functions that you should remember. Question 111.